I think we're ready. Trying to make sure you guys are on the same page. Awesome. Live. Oops. And okay. Perfect. Yay, we're live. Welcome. This is your friend, your girl, Carrie Divine. Also go by Diana, the metaphysical midwife. If you're just tuning in and do not know who I am, we talk about goddess archetypes, divine feminine, and all aspects of connecting with yourself through transformational. Hey guys, I see you guys are kicking in. Hello. Transformational activities that helps us up level our lives to find the bridge between our spirituality and the rest of our experience as human, right? So today's topic today, we're going to be discussing about sex magic and sex archetypes as it pertains to the goddess archetype. So I'm really excited because I did a poll. Hey guys, I did a poll over the weekend to ask you all what was some of your goddess archetypes that you were interested in learning about as it pertains to sex magic. And Isis was the most popular one. So I'm happy to discuss this today and really kind of give a different approach to what sex magic may be, especially as it pertains to the goddesses and tapping into their archetypical stories and utilizing this as a way to lead to enhancement of their spiritual path. So, why sex magic? Let's get into it. Why even discuss sex magic? The conversation around sex magic, at least I'll say this, the popular way that we see sex magic talked or discussed is through this concept of like enhancing our sexuality experience or performing in a way that is bringing us more pleasure or a partner more pleasure or partners, right? And that is actually a part of sex magic. That is using your sexual energy to be in tune with yourself and or your partners, right? So that's not wrong. However, the conversation doesn't go deeper, or at least let's say this, the mainstream conversation, let's do that. The mainstream conversation of sex magic really keeps it very surface level. And there's more to sex magic than just getting an orgasm, right? It's more to sex magic than just performing a specific pose or posture or, position and during the act of sex. Sex magic doesn't even necessarily have to involve sex at all. So let's get into this conversation about exactly what sex magic is. She said facts, or he, I'm sorry, WK2FM. Yay, welcome. Thank you for coming through. Yeah, we got the radio station in. Yay. Let's talk about sex magic. Let's talk about really what this is. So sex magic is really the cultivation of one's sexual energy or life force energy. Some call it Shakti, some call it Chi. Very simply and plain to take the woo out of it, and that's just I like things simple and plain. Give it to the real. Sex magic or life energy. Excuse me. Let me go. Life energy is really just electromagnetic energy. As human beings, and actually all life, we carry electromagnetic frequency or energy. And that's actually what keeps everything in our blood pumping, that keeps the heart going, that keeps everything because we're electric and magnetic. So when we understand that's all life force energy is the electromagnetism of our beingness, it takes out the woo woo and then it makes more sense of the myths and the stories. When we talk about Shakti, when we talk about the Chi, when we talk about life force, it's really just your electromagnetic energy. Every human has electric energy. That's the nervous system and magnetism of the heart, right? So that just keeps it very plain and simple. Now, why is it important to cultivate this energy? And the way that we do this as the human species, or just as life force in general, is through sex. And we are able to use that because that is how all life pretty much got here. That's how I got here. That's how you got here. Even if you were inseminated, okay, it still took a sex cell to go with another sex cell to be put together and create this alchemical process of turning spirit into matter. Okay. So, because that's what we do over here, right? On Earth, at least, right? So let's hone in on this conversation now. Let's really bring it in and bring it forth to make it practical. So now that I understand chi or my chakra points or my Shakti or my Shiva energy is just electromagnetic energy, electric being the Shiva, and magnetism being the Shakti, right? But when they come together, it creates that whole entire vibe. Big facts, all true. What you say and teach it. Shay, I'm glad this is resonating. Yes, yes. So now let's go into it. So when we are cultivating this part of ourselves, right, or tapped in, because a lot of people, due to the society, and I'll just give my example of my experience. I grew up in a very religious home, Southern home, purity culture. So there was a lot of emphasis on chastity and virginity and this whole thing a lot of shame. Let's just put that. There was a lot of shame that was put on sexual energy and sexual expression. And so what happens when we're shamed about that part of ourselves, which is very natural and normal to be sexual, or to acknowledge that you're a sexual being, right? When we put shame and guilt and fear on those type of on that energy, it now blocks us from really truly experiencing life force, experiencing pleasure, and it also blocks us in magnifying and law of attraction and all of those parts of the universal laws, because there's 12 that we know of, but there are a lot more universal laws than that. But it blocks us from really tapping in and honing into the universal laws. So giving you guys a little bit background about sexual energy, Shakti life force energy, let's get into the meat of the conversation today. And before we start, I want to give you guys a special announcement. Yay! I hope you guys are all tuned in or signed up to my email list. If you haven't done so, please go make sure that you go to tahiridivine.com, and there will be a drop box that falls down, ask you to sign up for my mailing list. And there you can put your email in. And that's a great way for us to communicate with each other. We all learned about the Facebook apocalypse about not too long ago, that if we don't find other avenues to be in contact with each other, we'll lose contact. And a lot of my base is here on Facebook platforms. And in order to stay in contact with you all, in order for us to continue to get information and share and learn and grow and connect, because my ultimate goal is to really take my internet tribe and bring you guys into real life. So the goal, I guess you could say long-term goal, is eventually to make this more person to person, city to city. And that is the goal. So connect with me, get your emails on tahiridivine.com, and we can connect that way. Next announcement, you guys, you know that I am relaunching our Emergence Temple online mystery school. We start the 1st of November. If you ladies, because this is for ladies only, sorry, this is for women only. If you are interested in signing up, we're rediscovering the goddess archetypes of the mother, the mother, the sacred whore, and the Maya. And I think these are really great, interesting archetypes, especially as we're going to spooky season. Ooh. And to really dive and understand as we learn the dark aspects, the light aspects, and integrating these archetypes into our lives so that we can have an expansive experience in our life force. And if we don't experience that archetype for ourselves, we're able to recognize it and give awareness to it when it shows up for us, right? So when we see it in pop culture, when we see it in our day-to-day lives, we'll do for sure. Oh, thank you for signing up. I hope you do that. Hey, Comfy P, I love you, honey. Hey. Perfect. And lastly, too, to add to that, we are doing our first in-person retreat next year in April 14th to the 17th. There is an application process for that. So if you are interested in doing that, we actually go 4 days into the actual archetypes, and we actually embody them and work through them. And I have some really great special guests that will be coming in and helping us as we dive deeper to our divine feminine path. So I'm excited. More information about that, all in my links in my bio. So if you guys are interested, go ahead and do so. So let's get into it. Yay. Okay, so let's talk now. Let's get into the meat of this conversation about Isis, now that we kind of got some basis about what sex magic is, okay, or at least life force energy. So let's talk about Isis, right? She's like our favorite to talk about. I really love Isis too, because let's get to her. So she is a goddess of the Egyptian or Kemetic pantheon. Hey, hello, hello, Raven. I see you, girl. She is of that pantheon. More classically, she is known to be the mother of the pantheon. However, if you kind of dig deeper into her story, you know there were goddesses that predated her, but that's neither here nor there. Let's just get to her story that we know, the story that we know, the story that we repeat. So, and why her mythos is important, and how to tap into her energy to understand our sex magical components, right? So, the story of Isis goes that she was married to the king brother, Osiris or Osar, depending on what name you guys decide to go with. And their jealous brother Set came and chopped him up into 13 pieces, dispersed them all over the world. Isis herself went to find the different pieces and couldn't find all of them. Well, found all of them except for one, which is his phallus, but she was able to put him back together, which allowed him to become Lord of the underworld. And what she did through the magic of putting him back together, she was able to conceive a child because they didn't consummate their marriage prior to his death. And so she ended up becoming pregnant with his child and birthing who we know to be Horus or Heru. And that is pretty much the over basis of her story. Now, that story is actually a metaphor of feminine and masculine, or the polarities and how they express themselves. So it has nothing to do with being female. It has nothing to do with being male. It is an expression of how both energies show up. It's also an expression of the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. Asar or Osiris, he represents the conscious mind. And Isis is the unconscious or the subconscious, more so the subconscious. And what this is really a dance between the two, which is actually what sex magic is. It is actually the forming and the conjoining of the harmonizing of the two forces coming together. And within that, we see the symbol. Oh my gosh, I cannot remember the name of the symbol right now, but it's the black and white, one side white, one side black with the dots. I don't know why my mind is getting me, but it's Mercury retrograde, guys. But that is a symbol of actually the interface and the harmony between feminine energy and masculine energy. And that is actually what sexual energy is, or electromagnetic energy. And when we are able to embrace both sides of us without finding I want to take a word the way balance, because typically we use the word balance a lot. Yin and yang. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you. Yes, the yin and yang symbol. And I said, I want to get away from the word balance. And I say that as a Libra, because to me, I think the consensus in our minds is when we balance something, we are measuring something, we are weighing something, we are almost to a point trying to say something is greater than, lesser than. And I think what we should do is get away from the word balance and look more into the word as harmony, because balance doesn't always mean 50-50. 80-20 can be balanced, 70-30, and et cetera, et cetera. But even with that notion, sometimes with measuring or weighing something, it still gives us this almost this negative connotation as, oh, well, you're only, let's give an example of the subconscious and the unconscious, of subconscious and the conscious mind. Conscious mind is 10%, is what we're told. The subconscious is 90%. And in some ways, there will be this conversation that the 90% is more important than the 10%. You know, you guys kind of get what I'm saying with that. So I want to get away from the conversation of making something balanced and more so using the word harmony. Androgyny. Androgyny is another word that could be used. I'm gonna come back to my perspectives on the word androgyny on another call, but I totally get that one too. So when we look at life in more of how to be harmonious with each other, not looking at any one of us or any energy, let's go at any energy being greater than, lesser than, we start to find ourselves in flow with each other, right? We're flowing. So with the story of Isis and her sex magic ritual, what her story is really showing us, actually that story during the whole myth, is really showing us the connection between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. Osar representing that, dying to its idealism of how the world should be, because he was alive, right? And then he was killed. And then he was put back together by the subconscious mind. Isis are all set to be resurrected in the underworld, where now he has a perspective of both the light world and the shadow world. As Isis, who is the subconscious mind, realms between both worlds freely. And what is she able to do? She's able to merge both of those experiences together. And this is actually a story about the joining of these two consciousness together, which created Heru, or the hero, or the divine child, which we become, because that's just enlightenment. Horus or Heru represents the enlightenment. So when we're talking about sex magic, right? If you want to put this in an act, right, of acting this out, we're talking more so about your receptivity to pleasure, your receptivity to your own energy life force, and utilizing that as a tool of enlightenment. So sex magic isn't just so much about the sake of pleasure of trying to bust that, right? Trying to get an orgasm out, although that is actually part of the process. Dots connecting for me, yay! and that's what we want. We want these dots to be connected. So we're talking about where in my life, if I'm going to try to embody this archetypical story into my life, into more owning of my own Shakti energy or my own life force, where am I blocking myself? Am I too electric, right? Am I too much masculine energy and not balanced within with my feminine energy or my magnetism, right? Because we know the feminine energy is a magnetizing type of energy. And we know the masculine energy is more of a constricting, straight shot type of energy from electricity, right? So where do I need to find more of the harmonious within self? And where are my own personal hangups? Like I shared with you guys, my experience coming up in purity culture was a lot of guilt, shame on being a sexual being, or even just acknowledging that, you know what, I like sex and what can I do with this? And when we are too far on one side, it creates this phenomenon, and it's called endometriosis. And I think I totally just butchered that word, but I'm going to make sure I put it in somewhere. And what that is, it's a psychological description of when a person is too far on one side or one polar of their expression of their psyche, that your unconscious or subconscious mind ends up pushing you into an event in your life that is going to force you to go to the other side of the polarity, which we see this type of extremities. Like for example, we're seeing this play out right now. So with thought culture, right, or what's called whole culture, thought culture, we were in such and still kind of sort of is, but the feminine expression of her sexuality was so oppressed and suppressed and repressed for the last few, not just centuries, but for a few thousand years. And now we're in this space where she's awakening. And anytime in any type of awakening, right? I don't think waking up is ever going to be really pretty, especially if you was kind of forced to be put to sleep. So when you're kind of like being jolted awake, it's kind of like this frantic type of energy. And it's like you're trying to scrabble everything you can to kind of like figure out where am I at, what am I doing? Oh, this is what I do. Or I'm a sexual person. I'm a sexual being. This is the feminine energy's expression right now. And it's grabbing onto anything it can to try to reclaim itself based on what's already being presented to something. So it's kind of like, think of an idea of like somebody who's been unconscious for an X amount of time. And when they come to, if they're not being told who they are and what they are, they're trying to grasp whatever's close to them to kind of figure out who am I, and then make a decision based on the tools that's in front of them. So I kind of see that's what's happening with the whole thought culture as the sexual awakening, this second movement or third movement, whatever's really going on with the awakening of our sexual energy, particularly in the feminine expression. There is this need to grab hold to whatever you can to express itself and find itself. And there's this really good conversation going on TikTok and the side of YouTube I've been on about the female gaze versus the male gaze, which is a totally different experience. It's kind of like when we have the conversation about patriarchy and matriarchy, like patriarchy or matriarchy is not what patriarchy is just with women. It was a completely different system altogether. And so it's a similar conversation when you look at female gaze and the male gaze. It's a different expression of the gaze than what we expect the male gaze to be when we talk about female gaze. But I'm kind of going to tangent there. But let's hone back in. Let's hone back in on the conversation. So, hey. So now that she's just been abruptly awakened and now she's gaining her control based on the tools that's already presented for her, she will then start to expand out of that because then she'll start to reclaim and redefine what that looks for her. But right now we're in the thick of it. So with that being said, since we're in this thick of this awakening of sexual energy, hey, I am Goddessness. Hello. We are now merging together our consciousness and our subconsciousness to what we truly want to create, because we understand that life force energy, sex energy, creates stuff. It can create positive and it create negative, if we be honest, right? There's a lot of the polarity can go either way with it depending on the intention, and not just the intention, but the action too, because sometimes our intentions could be one way, but the action that we may use to express the intention may not always, it doesn't always compute. Like, oh, that's not what I thought you meant, right? So what we're doing now, we're talking about embodying Isis's story. We're embodying within ourselves, where are my breakages or blockages, excuse me, with my subconscious mind? Where am I not willing to die, conscious mind, to what I think I know, to what's been presented to me as my life? And where am I willing to go to the underworld of myself to rule and reign supreme, so that when I come back to the light again, I'm able to see myself as a holistic person versus on a one-sided example, okay? So that's the sex magic story of Isis. That is where now we are able to now recognize within ourselves, what are the pieces of myself that need to be put back together to formulate who I truly am. And there's some parts of the myth that say she did find all pieces, other parts that say she didn't. But let's go with the aspect to say if she didn't. So let's say we did put back the different pieces of ourselves, right? We're now reconfiguring our story. There's a missing piece, supposedly. I believe that with sexual energy or that life force energy, that missing piece is ourself realizing I am already whole. So it's like you're putting a puzzle together and not realizing you're the piece to the puzzle, right? So with that perspective in mind, we are now able to utilize this concept of Isis as a way of, I make myself whole, because Isis represents the priestess archetype. And the priestess archetype, or the priestess, let's say, she is the guiding avenue between the spirit and the mundane world. And she is able to use the mundane world in reverence to the spirit world. And the spirit world, and she activates herself within the spirit world to have an experience in the mundane world. So it's never about being one way or the other. And it's the same thing when it comes to our Shakti, life force energy, electromagnetic energy. Am I just electric? And I'm always showing up as the electric energy, even if I naturally resonate at electric energy. And so that's nothing wrong with that. You could naturally resonate at electric energy. There's nothing wrong with that. Or you could naturally resonate more so on magnetism or magnetic energy. The point is that since you are both, is there already harmony within the self prior to bringing in another partner? Because when we bring in a partner, especially when it comes to sex magic now we're talking about the act of performing the sexual ritual. When it comes to the act of performing the sexual ritual, prior to you beginning to the act, the act has to take place first. And when we bring a partner involved, all they're going to do is reflect back to us what's already within us. And that is where I think with the Isis archetype is like ownership of my experience and ownership of myself, realizing I manifested this not only based on my clear intention, because Isis is about clear intention. If you are a priestess, that means clear intention. Also with clear action that is in alignment with my intention. Because again, we could have intentions, but then the actions don't always lead up to the intention. For example, we could say we're on a diet, but then we're eating an extra box of donuts, right? Action doesn't really necessarily align with the intention. But neither here and there. So let's do that. So Isis, as the priestess archetype that we embody in our sex magic ritual, is asking us, where are we blocking ourselves from to allowing our ego to die to the experience that, or to die from the perceived experience, right? Where is my ego leading me? And does the ego need to take a step back so that it can take a break? Because a lot of us are running off the ego, especially, oh, check it, especially when it comes to our sexual energy. It's ego, whether we are overinflated or we feel like, because ego doesn't always mean like, oh, I think I'm the best thing ever. Ego can also be like, oh, I think I'm the worst thing ever, or I'm so this, woe is me. So ego can go either ways. Either way, it's still egoic behavior because it's not the truth of who you are, right? Whether you are overinflated of yourself or you devalue or devalue or inflate, y'all know the word, of how it's expressed. So with that being said, we're taking her archetype. We are doing some real deep soul incisioning of cutting away what doesn't serve us, by cutting away what is no longer needed and what is blocking us from being in free flow with our own energy. And it gives us now more responsibility and proactiveness to now really just say, I am responsible for myself. I am responsible for how my energy is regenerating. I'm responsible for how my energy is coming out. And when I do that, I am telling the universe of more of what I want. And I am now living in alignment with that. So now my expression of myself is more confident. My expression of myself is more magnetizing to the things that I desire to experience. And not only is it going to magnetize it, but I am mature enough to stand in it, because that inner deep work that's really called to do this type of work, to really get to that spiritual enlightenment with self, is going to take shadow work. Like, I don't know anybody who claims that they are spiritually attuned if they're not doing shadow work and if they're not integrating their shadow selves. Because just keeping it on sex alone, if there is any type of barrier that you have when it comes to expressing sexuality, and again, that's expressing sexuality doesn't have to mean that you're provocative, doesn't mean that you have to be promiscuous or have an OnlyFans account or have to do, I don't know. It doesn't mean that. Your sexual energy is yours. It's just your life energy. How are you showing up in life? Are you happy to be in life, or are you pessimistic about your life, right? These are the avenues on where Isis is calling us to go into the shadows of ourselves, to be the Lord of our own underworld, so that we can see now both ourselves and now start to attract the type of experiences that we have, and not just attract it, but sustain it. Because she's about sustaining, because she's also a mother of Haru, right? You now become the mother or the parent, this is for my men too, the parent of your manifestation. And this is why I think the beauty of why I love the Isis archetype and her story, because it takes away this idea that I'm helpless or that I can't do. Because the story that she experiences is quite tragic, right? Your lover has been murdered brutally by your brother, who represents the ego. And now you have to try to recreate a new life with the pieces of what's left of self, right? So that is where we really find ourselves kind of being smack dabbed with the truth of ourselves. I feel like that part of the story is about, what's the truth of my experience at this point, and what am I willing to do to take ownership and a responsibility of that, and own my life force, and not allow it to be manipulated by others, not allow it to be misconstrued, or not even allow myself to be influenced to do things that doesn't align with my own energy field, right? My own energy source. So it's really, again, self-ownership is what Isis' story is teaching us when it comes to our sex magic. So when we decide to invite a partner in to enhance and reflect back what we have already done within the inner work, when we come to that unionship, right? It is now a union of intention. It's not just, which means you can have sex for the sake of having sex, because I mean, I'm all for that too. But now you are putting this intention that I am conjoining myself with the ideal of self through this sacred act. And it becomes ritualistic, if you want to say that. It becomes sacred at that point because now there is a different level of experience that we're having at this point. So that is all that I have right now as I share this experience and this story and this perspective of Isis and her sex magic ritual and rite. If you guys have any questions in the comment section or any insights that came to you all, more than welcome. Share it. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. What are some of your thoughts on that? And I know someone says connecting dots, connecting dots. I love that because it's for me, it's a different perspective of what I was really kind of taught to think about Isis, because that's one aspect. One aspect I was taught to think of Isis as, well, she represents the feminine who heals the masculine. Yeah, but not in the point like it's females healing men or males, but it's more so about my subconscious mind tuning into that and allowing my subconscious mind to recreate and rebrand and restory my conscious understanding of myself by having me go into the depths of myself and learn to be the soldier, learn to be the warrior and the hero of our own story, right? That is, I think that's the beautiful thing about it. And so when we're able to um, materialize that in a sexual act, it has more substance to it because it's coming from a place of pure understanding of self rather than a place of victimness or a place of circumstances, right? Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I that is all I have. Any again, if you guys haven't done so, please make sure at the end of this that you go to tahiridivine.com to sign up for my mailing list. Great way to keep in contact with me. I'm actually going to be putting out a text message service for you guys too, because I think that's another great way to keep up too. So for those who sign up on that, you will get an email. For everybody's on my email list. By the end of the week, we'll be getting an email about joining my text message service where you guys kind of keep up with me. Because I want to do more. I want to do more things with y'all. More private things off the apps. You know what I'm saying? Other things that we can do. We can just talk. We can kind of kick it, hang out. And I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, so please make sure you go to tahiridivine.com to join my mailing list. Don't forget, you guys know that I am relaunching the Emergence Temple, where we're going into the the divine feminine archetypes of the mother, the Maya, and the sacred whore. We'll be diving into that. That's a 4-week course that starts 11/1. Registration for that course is open, as well as the corresponding retreat, which will be in April in Scottsdale, Arizona. The retreat is not a prerequisite for the class, or the class is not a prerequisite for the retreat. But if you are, ladies, if you're interested in coming together with other women and really embodying these archetypes in a real life based place and where we can relax, enjoy some beautiful scenery, then definitely do that. The application is available for that. And I love you all. And thank you guys for rocking with me. I look forward to going back to the comments as you guys rewatch this and kind of share what has came up for you or what insights or perspective shifts or expansion that this conversation may have brought. We will be coming back later this week to talk about Medusa, because that was the second highest one. I love the Medusa. I think her story and her sex magic story is important to really understand as we are proceeding along this path. But until next time, I love you guys. Bye now.